Good evening, I'm Andre Harrison from the Motorsport 101 Network, and you've probably already read the news if you're a fan of motorsport, but in case you haven't, I'm bringing to you the tragic news that Nicky Hayden has passed away. He was in a training accident in Italy. He was he was cycling and he was struck by a car. He was rushed to hospital. It was told that he had suffered from severe brain damage, and 4 days later he has sadly succumbed to his injuries. And obviously this is just devastating news. For those people that know me well, I'm a huge biking fan, and this is just an awful blow to the world of motorsport as a whole, let alone bike racing. Which is why, I was planning to do a Google Hangout today, obviously in a much brighter note, a lot of excitement in the air, obviously IndyCar, Monaco Grand Prix, etc. coming off the back of a fantastic Motogp race weekend at Le Mans. But that's sadly all been overshadowed now by the tragic news of Nicky Hayden's passing, and I just wanted to come out here on this video blog and say a few words regarding Nicky. And it's awful news. It's awful news. Nicky Hayden, obviously the 2006 Motogp World Champion, and for those that don't know, it was such an incredible world title win, because it was a world title that was so important. It changed how we looked at MotoGP for a long time. Valentino Rossi was already arguably the greatest that this sport had ever seen, and then Nicky Hayden beat him on his terms out of nowhere. Nobody ever saw it coming, but Nicky Hayden would go on to win the 2006 world title and beat the greatest rider we'd ever seen to it, fair and square. Moments like Estoril 2006, that epic race where we all thought it was over when we had that clash with Dani Pedrosa, and then at Valencia just 2 weeks later, the beautiful scene of him bawling his eyes out with his dad, celebrating what was a seemingly improbable world title. He's such an incredible and important bike rider in the history of MotoGP as it is. He's a MotoGP Hall of Famer. And I think not only because of his career, but also because of how important he was for the US bike racing as a whole. We've not had an American influence on motorsport in the US when it comes to US bike racing since Nicky Hayden. Yeah, we've had Ben Spies come and go, and don't get me wrong, there is up-and-comers coming through the ranks like PJ Jacobson, who's in World Supersport right now with MV Agusta, and James Rispoli, who's in the British Superstock 1000 Cup right now, who are great talents, and I look forward to seeing how their careers progress. But we've not had a guy like Hayden at the top since. The American motorcycle scene is just not what it's been, and a lot of that is down to just how important and how significant a role Nicky Hayden played as the American ambassador for bike racing in the world in its premier class. And he spent the best part of 14 years in MotoGP, and such an important role in its history. Many US GP wins, obviously that 2006 world title as well, and even more importantly than that, a truly great man, a truly phenomenal gentleman and class act off the bike. Everyone I've spoken to or seen on the internet was glowing in how great a guy Nicky Hayden truly was. And on a personal level, for those guys that don't know, in our previous iteration of Bike Live on Downforce Radio, Nicky Hayden was one of our guests we had on last year when he was representing Honda on the World Superbike scene, and that was his big comeback to bike racing on a factory team in World Superbikes. And we interviewed him, and the fun story is that we actually called him up an hour early by accident, and it was 6 o'clock in the morning in Texas. He was back home when we called him up, because we had his personal phone number when we called him up, and we woke him up early, but he still was willing to do the interview. Shrugged it off, no problem, spent a good 20 minutes talking to him. He is a true class act and a truly lovely bloke, and it probably remains one of the highlights of my career as a broadcaster and a journalist that we got to spend over 15 minutes with Nicky Hayden and just talking to him about the good old days, 2006, his time in Motogp, the excitement over him being in World Superbikes again, and the enhancement to that series that he would bring. And yeah, safe to say, I'm truly devastated that we've lost him. But if you want to listen to that interview, by the way, you can. It's on our SoundCloud page. Link will be in the description. It's from 2015, 2016, sorry. But if you want to listen to that, feel free. I don't know whether we're going to have a bike live this week, to be honest with you. We didn't have one last week for the reasons of Hayden's condition. It didn't feel right to talk about World Superbikes when he was still in that condition. Follow our social media for more on that, but that doesn't really matter right now. What matters is that we give tribute to one of the finest bike riders of this era. Rest in power, Kentucky Kid. We'll always miss you.